Hey, what's up, everybody? How you guys doing? It's Andre with AndreReese.Biz. All right, guys. Man, we are, before I jump in all that, today's topic I'm going to talk about is how to survive Valentine's Day. I'm going to eventually get to that at the end, but this is all the fluff and filler in the beginning. But, man, all I got to say here, let me just turn the phone around here. Actually, the little gimbal. You guys kind of see that over here? It's been like a week and a few days, maybe like a week and a half since we had snow that fell. And we are still suffering from the snowpocalypse. And I'll tell you, out here right now, we have something that's formed, which is called, maybe I can show you guys here real quick. Turn this around here. We have something formed here on the ground, which is called snowcrete. If you take a look at it, it's everywhere all over the city and across like big, huge fields and stuff like that. It's essentially, it's glazed over snow that is melted and it's formed like concrete or asphalt. And it takes a lot to break it up. And when you break it up, it looks very similar to asphalt from the road, how it breaks off into these big, huge chunks that you can stack up. And so that's kind of what we're suffering from right now. So the crazy thing is, and I'll talk about real quick about the snowpocalypse. I'm also going to just real quick talk about the Epstein files. I'll talk about the general strike as well. As you guys know, Don Lemon recently got arrested, so we'll throw a couple minutes on that one as well. And then out here, there's 50 new taxes that they are proposing out here in Virginia with the new transformation of office from the Republicans to the Democrats. We got, Spanberger's now the new governor, and we'll talk about that real quick. And I don't think I have anything else outside of that. And maybe I might even mention just real quick the general strike, but I'll talk about the snowpocalypse. Man, so like I said, we're still recovering from it. It's this. We're not the only ones. The city of Virginia. I don't think this is. I've seen people online. They've said this in 21 years that they've lived here, 18 years, they've never seen it like this before, at all in the past. And for me, it's very intriguing to be out here and be able to see all this. Growing up in California, being born and raised, but. The city has been having a hard time trying to get the roads clear. They usually focus on the main roads, then they'll do the secondary side streets and the third side streets, and they're still working on trying to get them done. So what's happening now is that since it's been so long and the snowcrete set up really within about 24 hours, you can't plow ice, because that's essentially what it's turned into. And the city's been struggling trying to do it. And we're not the only ones. I've been seeing online, I've been seeing in New York, the same thing, Baltimore, same thing, Detroit. They've got their own series of, snowcrete stuff that they're trying to deal with. And I'll tell you, the temperature is not going to start rising. Yesterday, I think we were down to like -5 for the wind chill early in the morning. And I think even now it's in the 30s. But the temperature is not going to significantly start rising until next week. I think we're going to get up to about 45, 46, 47. And so hopefully all this stuff will melt off, by then. But in the meantime, it's really amazing and fascinating to be able to see this as it's all happening. And I'll tell you, with the last snowstorm that came through like a week and a half ago, I think there's a snow conspiracy. I was thinking this right afterwards, and then I started seeing other people posted on TikTok, which was pretty crazy. But the snow conspiracy is the weather is being controlled, and the people that control the weather are working with all the major food manufacturers, specifically milk, bread, butter, snacks, soda, water, you name it, anything that you would normally buy. So what happened was they said that the world's worst storm was coming to the East Coast, and that immediately sent folks out to the stores and they cleared the shelves. And then as it got closer, they kind of relaxed it a little bit, but they still said it was going to be absolutely crazy. And then when it finally arrived and came, it was pretty decent what came down and what happened. But in the end, like there are people that got hurt, there are people that got stranded, there are people still without power right now. But the cataclysmic nature of what they said was going to happen, we may have gotten like 20% of that, you know. So it's like these guys got us to go out and clear the shelves and boost all the money into the stores, which, you know, boosted the wealth of the billionaires that are controlling the weather, you know, kind of a thing. But it's very interesting to hear people say that and think that. And then we also had another snowpocalypse that was supposed to be coming and was supposed to hit us last weekend. And they said, and immediately after the other one was over with, they said, oh, if you think that one was bad, the one that's coming this weekend is essentially going to freeze the entire East Coast. And then if somebody just hits it with a fist, the whole entire continent on the East Coast will just break off, float into the ocean, then sink. And then that's the end of civilization. That's how bad it was going to be. And I was watching the models, and they were just like calamity. And in the end, you know, it was supposed to be Friday and Saturday, I think it was. When we got close to Friday, I didn't do anything new. I didn't go out and try to buy anything at all or increase what we did before. But I ended up just waiting. And then Friday came, there was nothing. They said the snow was going to be on Saturday. And then Friday evening, they cleared the model up. So Saturday, we didn't get anything at all that came through. I know some of the other areas south of us got some snow and all that as well. But in the end, you know, I wish they were able to do a better job of, you know, predicting the weather. And sometimes people think, well, these guys are all working together and they're trying to clear the shelves that way, you know, because we're a market-based economy. They're controlling the weather. You got to do whatever it takes to be able to get the people to go out and spend money. You know, that way the billionaires can become trillionaires. So actually, so essentially what happens is the millionaires can become billionaires, the billionaires can become trillionaires, and the trillionaires can become gabillionaires. That's what the whole idea is, and they just kind of do it one storm at a time. Is that actually true? No, but it's funny to kind of think about that. But I think I'm most thankful that the snow that did come through wasn't as bad as people thought it was going to be. In the end, I think we all survived. My heart goes out for anybody that is still suffering, and you know, people that are may have lost their life in this whole process. But we made it through, which is kind of great. And then that kind of brings us to talk about just a couple other things that are just kind of currently happening in the news. So that's kind of like the snow conspiracy. We had, let's talk about Don Lemon. I guess he got arrested, you know, and he was recently released, you know. So I say good for him. Congratulations to him. I know that he's been trying to find his foot, and after he got fired, I think it was on CNN, and he's been, you know, working really hard to try to build up his persona and his following and find a way to still make it work. So something like this happening to him, getting arrested, it definitely was going to uplift him and his brand. And, you know, he'll become a spokesperson for certain things in certain ways, you know, all good, you know. And so what's my opinion about what happened? I'm going to stay out of it. I'm not an attorney, and I've said this before in the past. You know, I've never even played one on TV. But I watch a number of independent journalists on television. And one of them is Tommy. I forget the guy's name, but he actually goes with people, and he's on capers as they're happening, and he's filming there, and everybody's face is covered up and all that kind of thing. So I don't know what the legal line is that you can be on, and how to stay independent of, you know, liability when it comes to these sort of things. You know, so he's a smart guy. I know he's going to figure it out in the end. But there was quite a bit of work that they went through to try to eventually get to the point where they could finally arrest him and at least at a minimum send a message. Do I think he's going to do serious jail time for it? I doubt it, you know, but like I said, I'm not an attorney here. And all I got to say is if you guys are out here thinking about doing anything, just be aware of the legal ramifications of everything that you do, and just keep that in mind. So, and like I said, good for him. He got arrested. It's going to definitely help his career and move it forward at this point as an independent journalist, you know. So But everybody else out there that may not have the name brand recognition, just be careful and be sure to consult legal people, and that way you can understand what you can and you can't do. And in the end, whatever the justice system decides here is what's going to happen. And I'll tell you, in the end, if somebody wants you, no matter what you do, it may happen. They'll end up, figuring out a way to make it work. So that's a good lesson for all of us to definitely learn here. And so then we also had, just real quick, we have the Walk for Peace that's happening. The Walk for Peace, it's about 20 venerable monks that have come out of Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and they're working their way up to Washington, D.C. It's a 2,300-mile walk, and regardless of the conditions, rain, sleet, snow, hail, it's not about their comfort. They are still trudging along. And so I think today is day 100, and they hit Richmond, Virginia. And so they are actually here in town. They're working their way up. They're going to stop downtown Richmond, Virginia around 3 and 4. They're going to be down at City Hall, and I think another location. Then they're going to work their way over to their place where they're going to rest tonight. And like I said, I told you guys before, since I've been following, I would love to see them when they do come through here to Richmond, Virginia. And I looked at the map last night. They're actually going to be staying tonight in VUU, which is like a quarter of a mile right behind our house. If I look out our window, I can see the giant sign that they have coming up out the ground. So we'll definitely try to make our way over there this evening to be able to, show our support and our solidarity for the peace movement, and we'll be there. And I know there'll be thousands and thousands of other folks that will be there also as well. So if you guys get one more chance to see them, I think, but from this point on, they're about 130 miles, 38 miles or so from DC. So they're walking about 20 miles a day. So they'll probably end up being there, roughly in about 6 or 7 days or so. So probably on the 8th is when they will arrive. And I think that's what they're projecting, the 8th or the 9th. And so if you're out in the DC area, they have a number of different things that are planned. Be sure to go by and check them out and show your support. And like I said, everybody needs to find a way that they can make a difference in everybody's life, and try to levy and try to work within the issue of trying to be as peaceful as possible. Take it from these guys here, and then they're definitely inspiring folks. I'm definitely inspired by it as well. I think I said in my previous video, the reason why I do these things right now is to be able to help inspire people and give some people some information to help them be able to kind of make sense of this whole thing, and not give up and give up on hope, for sure. So like I said, they're going to be here today, and I'll shoot a separate video, and I'll probably get that up tomorrow or the next day or so. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And the other miscellaneous item here, they had the general strike last Friday, and I think they had the protest on Saturday. So there was a number of people that, and I didn't find out about it until maybe Wednesday or Thursday. It popped up on my feed. So that's one of those things. Some of these things are very difficult to be able to find. I found out about it on TikTok. And so what folks were doing is they were making a point to stay out of work. They were staying out of school, and then they weren't going to go out and do anything in the evening or during the day to support any businesses at all. So it was just a all hands, deck on hands strike. And so, so there's a ton of content that you can watch. Me personally, anybody that wants to go out and protest in any kind of way as possible, that's all good. That's why we live in a democratic society here. That way you have that option to be able to protest, against the government and, all those things as well. So no issue for me on that there at all, but it looks like there might be building some momentum, but I also noticed too on a lot of the videos where they show folks that were participating in the strike, they're very focused, and there may not be as many people as it appears. So I don't know, so if folks are definitely trying to build momentum, continue to do what you do, keep it cool. And I know later on in the evening that night, folks got a little bit rowdy down in Los Angeles. So if you do participate in these type of things, be peaceful, stay on the sidewalk, and do what you need to do in order to try to advance how you feel. And if something's not working for you, you have every right in the world to go out and protest and make your voice known, but just be peaceful about it, and and continue to seek comfort and refuge with other folks that feel the same. And maybe over time you can build enough momentum where there might be some change that comes out of it. So always definitely a good thing to be able to see. And I think the only other thing I want to talk about is so I guess one thing is the Epstein files, man. So they had the most recent release. I think it's 3 million files plus videos and other miscellaneous content that was released. And this time around, I think when they first released it, I went to the website for the Department of Justice and looked through the stuff. This time around, I'm not looking at it at all. I've seen a lot of different things that have popped up. And I'll tell you guys, just be careful. There is a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of deep fakes. If you really want to truly, and this really goes for almost anything right now, you can't trust what you see in the news cycle. You're going to have to take some time, and even think about it this way. I remember back when they had the issue back in September 11th, and we saw all that stuff happen live in front of our eyes. A lot of things that the reporters were talking about as they were happening, there was a lot of speculation. There were a lot of things that were said, but as weeks, hours, days went on, a lot of those narratives disappeared. And so that's no different now when it comes to anything that's popping up. And you might even have to take a little bit longer now to even pass judgment, because with technology and AI, it's so easy to fake almost anything. And so all I want to say is, if you find information that comes out, you got to have your own opinion. You're entitled to it. But if you're going to stand on something and fall on a sword, just make sure that it's legitimate. And I'll tell you, and I think one of the big things right now that popped up, and I'm not going to talk about anything specifically, but I know that there was a whole thing where even Mondani's mom was mentioned, at least in the Epstein files. I'll just use that as an example. So there's a number of people that are unhappy about that relationship that was there. But I'll tell you, the one thing that this treasure trove of and vast, archive of information shows is that once you get to a certain level, everybody here is essentially related to everybody in some sort of a way. And whether or not people know that things are happening positively or negatively, that's a whole nother story to be talked about. That's a whole nother video. But it was amazing to see that his mother also is mentioned in there. And then there's a whole series, and this goes back to what I'm talking about. There are a whole series of videos, not videos, but pictures that show him and his mother with other people that are part of the files that are well known, and at certain ages and stuff like that. And these things are spreading all over the web, and people are talking about them. They're talking about, they're making long videos and stuff on YouTube. But if you go and ask Gemini, there's no pictures of anything that shows Mondani, his mother, him with anybody. And if you go and ask, like I said, Gemini, it'll tell you that all these pictures are fake. They're all AI. And then there's like these different websites that break it down, and they show you, how you can tell if something's fake. You can upload a picture and it'll tell you the probability score. So that's what I'm saying. Before you jump to judgment and before you jump to a conclusion, really on anything these days, you got to be absolutely sure. And just give it some time, and then do a little bit of research and a little bit of fact checking, and you'll be able to find that a lot of stuff that happens now is not true. So it's not true. It's fake, and it's designed to, affect your emotions and all that. And I think one of the things that Elon Musk did recently is on Twitter, he showed one of the features that he's done now is that he's gone to allow you to see where a lot of these different troll accounts, where they actually originate from. So you think these big major accounts that will put out information about all types of subjects, a lot of them don't even originate in the United States. They come from areas elsewhere in the world. And a lot of people will fall for this propaganda, and then they will ride on this sword until and they will defend it to the end. And I get it. In The Wire, there was a saying that Slim said in the end. He said, we live to fight, we fight to die. If we find out what we're fighting on is a lie, we fight on that lie. But we got to just do better than that, because we have technology now, and you can use technology to snitch out technology, and it's just a matter of you just putting something in the Google search bar and checking for yourself, and you'll be able to see. And I'll tell you, I tell this to folks all the time, the one thing that you can always do, and this is something I realized when I was younger, whenever I would watch the news, we had the newspaper back then, we had magazines, and we also had local news that would come on television and stuff. And a lot of times you're watching these different things that would happen, and then you're like, oh, wow, this is pretty incredible what happened. But all the time, whenever there was something that happened that I had firsthand knowledge of, and somebody else reported on it, and I knew for a fact of what happened because I saw it with my own eyes, I was there. When they reported on it, they didn't report exactly what happened. And so if you think about the things that you actually know about, and you can look at some news or some information and know that it's completely incorrect, just think about all the things that you don't know about and how that standard applies across the board. So all I can say, guys, is just be careful out there and what you read and how you're influenced, and just fact check stuff. And then just remember, in the end, there's a level of this world that exists, and that majority of us will not ever have a privilege of being close to. But within this world, I don't care what side of the fence you're on, folks are ultimately related, and so what can you do about that? I don't have a suggestion at all, but just keep that in mind before you guys, ultimately jump on the bandwagon. And then this kind of leads to one last thing I want to talk about. And recently, before I go on to the final topic, which is how to survive Valentine's Day. So ultimately, right now, we had Glenn Youngkin, which was the governor of Virginia, and so he was a Republican. And so when he left office, so out here, which was very unique. And so I was registered to vote. I voted in the election, and all the elections since I have been registered, I've always voted in all those. But the one thing I was always tripping on is like, well, why did Governor, why did Youngkin just run one term and he's gone? So, and I tell you, to be honest with you guys, growing up in a Democratic state, which was California all my life, and coming here to a Republican ran state, I tell everybody, there is a huge difference between how the states are ran, the different programs, the taxation, the cost, all that stuff. It's obviously palatable, and there's a lot of folks that I've met in my life out here along the way, just generally, that have come from other areas of the country, and then they may have a certain belief system, but they benefit from what the Republicans have done out here in Virginia. And so I'm not here to say the Republican way of life is the way to go. I'm not trying to say that the Democratic life is the way to go, so the red team versus the blue team. But what I'm just saying is, being out here in a red ran state, I could tell the difference in how things were. And so and some of these things popped up, especially during the point where we had the government shutdown, where all the states were scrambling, and they were talking about how they didn't have money to fund the SNAP program, and we had a surplus. And so Youngkin was like, hey, we're going to go ahead and kick it in as long as we need to, because we have the money to pay it. We don't want our people to suffer. And so, like I said, we're one of the few states that actually runs a real true fiscal surplus, and they gave money back, $300 per taxpayer, last year also as well, and so the cost overall is low. I think our high end on the state income tax was like 3%. Oh no, actually it was 5.5% is what it was. So, and then they do a whole lot here with a whole lot less, and so, you got to give credit where credit is due. And so like I said, you're only allowed to run one consecutive term out here as governor. So Youngkin had to step aside, and which opened up his seat. And then, so of course, the Attorney General, she stepped in there, got his endorsement, and then there was also Spanberger as well. And so there's a giant division right now within the Democrats, and then the blue team, they're fighting amongst the progressive side and the moderate side. So out here, Spanberger ran as a moderate. Cool. Okay. All right. Perfect. So, and so ultimately in the end, she won. And I think the very first day of office, there was a number of different policies that were written in. You guys go look them up yourself, that people would have a tendency to say that they are a little bit more progressive. Okay, cool. I get it. But then at the same time, the out here right now, we know that in Congress is essentially controlled by the red team. Then you have Trump that's also on the red team. So pretty much anything that they want to do can almost make it through, because they have control of the House and the Senate as well as the presidency. And so out here in Virginia, the General Assembly, which is the House and I think the Senate, their version of it, along with the governor, which makes up the branch, they essentially control everything. So I think on day one, once she was inaugurated, there was a number of different things that were pushed through executive. There were executive orders that went through. Like I said, you guys can look those up. But most importantly, I think there were a number of different bills that were introduced into the assembly. And there was roughly about 50 different taxes that they're trying to put into play. And so this is what I'm talking about. Right now, these things have all been introduced by different members of the assembly. There's even one where they're trying to increase their pay. I think people are saying it's like 150%. But the senators out here and members of the General Assembly, I think they make $18,000 a year, and so they want to raise that up to $45,000, but it doesn't necessarily apply to them because they're currently in the session. But when the new one starts, I think in 2028, if it's approved, then that team of people will get the raise. So you can't necessarily vote for something that's going to benefit you, but if you stay around, you can definitely benefit from it. And so ultimately in the end, there's all this stuff, there's all this content out there right now where it's like, the citizens of Virginia have FAFO'd and nobody knew this and they were led down the road. And it's the second that she got in office, these things were all levied on the people. And so that you guys can look them up yourself. Some of the taxes are like dog walking taxes, dog grooming taxes. If you get food delivery or any type of delivery through UPS or Amazon, there's all types of stuff. And some of them are unusual, never heard of them before, but in total, there's about 50 of them. And so there's a ton of people right now that don't live out here that have nothing to do with the state. And they are essentially saying that these are all the things that are happening right now in Richmond, Virginia. And it's not true. None of it is, because like I said, you have to go beyond the actual information and do a little bit of research. So these things have all been proposed. So yeah, they've been proposed. They haven't been voted on yet. They haven't gone through the reconciliation process, and then once they've gone through the reconciliation process and they all get it together, that final bill that they put together with all the different scenarios goes up to the governor. And at that point, she can decide to sign it or veto it and kick it back down to the bottom. So when you look online right now, everything out here is on fire. People have been betrayed. blah, 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 blah. But like I said, it's not true. And so whether I believe in, I own a tax and accounting practice. I like to keep taxes as low as possible, and it definitely was a benefit to be out here and not have to have so much in the way of taxes. So you kind of know which way I'm going to lean on that. But like I said, there's so much misinformation out here right now. And these are things that I know about, and I can see that there are thousands and thousands of pieces of content and information that are talking about the folks of Richmond out here that have, put the bullet in their own mouth and they found out and this is what they get. But the only thing is, it's not true. And so, like I said, these things have been proposed, and they haven't gone through the process, and then they haven't been voted on, and they haven't been approved. So I think ultimately it might be a strategy where they put all these different things out there right now. And I think the big issue is that one of the reasons why folks did choose Spanberger is because she ran on a platform of affordability. And when you start to throw all these different taxes on here, it really affects affordability. I don't care how much you save on other stuff if you're getting taxed on each individual transaction individually. And I think even income tax would jump up to as high as, when you add all the different layers on there, it would jump up to 14% almost for the state income tax from like 5.75, I think now. So almost, nearly tripling in a way. Folks are not happy and they're upset. And so there's a number of different petitions that have been written and filed, and people are signing. And the petition is reasonable. I was looking at it. I don't sign that type of stuff. I don't participate in it. But people were saying that they want to voice their opinion, and they want her to look at how this is going to truly affect affordability out here. So in the end, what's going to happen? Who knows? What's the strategy here? Ultimately, the blue team might be pushing all these things out, and then in the end, they're going to dial them back and push just a few things through. That's often a strategy. It's like you propose like the worst case scenario, and then in the end, you push through only the things that you really want to, and people kind of sigh for relief. I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening. But, it is what it is, and that's kind of where things stand. So in the end, I think even a bigger thing about this that people have to be aware of is that we're coming up on the midterm elections, and folks may or may not be happy. And it looks like right now a lot of folks are happy and satisfied with what is currently happening under the current administration. So hey, that's what people have said in the polls. I get it. I'm not here to try to dispute that one way or another. But I think a lot of people right now are kind of looking at this as a test case, meaning that the blue team came in, they swept Richmond, Virginia, and there's a lot of eyes that are on them right now to try to determine what are they going to do and how this is all going to play out. And so if they're ultimately not careful, this could end up creating a ripple effect that can affect them in the midterm elections, because this is the test case. It's like we've given, and like I said, the other thing is this being here in Virginia is probably one of, like I said, if you're going to switch over to the other side, there's thing going on right now in New York where Mondani is talking about there's this $12 billion deficit, that he's having to struggle with to try to make things work. Cool, we get it, but that's all under the same color team, blue team and blue team. Out here, the red team left a significant, they left a significant surplus, almost $3 billion, and so now the blue team wants to propose additional taxes. They want to spend the $3 billion that's already there, and then they want to use this other money for other stuff. And so I think people will be able to take a look at this and say, hey, as a test case, I may hate what's going on right now, but I don't necessarily want to experience that. And so there's always going to be people that are going to be on the extreme on the red side that don't care what's happening. There's people that are going to be extreme on the blue side that don't care what's happening. But where the margin is that can affect the election and what's going to happen is all the people in the middle that are a little bit more conscious and cautious, and then they kind of see, I don't want this to happen to me. So that's the thing that the blue team has to be very much aware of right now. And then, like I said, as we stand, nothing has been passed, nothing's been approved, but all eyes are definitely on Virginia out here for sure. So that's it. I don't have anything more else to talk about that subject. But, Virginia out here, we're definitely in the news quite a bit. And these other topics, the snow apocalypse, the Don Lemon getting arrested, the general strike. Did I talk about the general strike? Yeah, I think I did talk about the general strike. That happened. And then the walk for peace and all that. A lot of things happening out here in the news. So that my only advice to you guys is be able to absorb stuff, look at things from every side of the fence, and try to determine what you can do. And I find that the folks that I follow right now on both sides, the red side and the blue side, are the ones that have a relatively calm voice of reason, but they stand on their principles. And anybody that's shouting and screaming and being extremely negative, I don't follow those people at all because it's useless. And I'll tell you, one of the people that I do follow on the blue team, and she talked about, and she's actually the lady that started out during the pandemic. I forget what her name is, but she's actually does the thing where she was underneath the desk and she would talk, and she drops a lot of knowledge bombs and a lot of reasonable information. And so I was watching her the other day. She was talking about the Epstein files. She said she had spent like 11 hours going through everything. Then she got to the point where she stopped. She says, you know what? At this point right now, me going through this is not going to change anything at all. It's not going to increase anything at all. I just need to keep my own personal sanity and let things fall the way they are. And so even though she may talk in the sense of the blue side, that's very reasonable to be able to look at. So like I said, be careful who you follow, be careful who you listen to, and do your own research. That way, in the end, things don't fall apart. So let me just jump in real quick and just do this last little part. And I'm coming up on 40 minutes here. I try to keep these videos under an hour. But my last topic that I'm really trying to talk about was Valentine's Day. So here we are. So today is February 2nd, and Valentine's Day is coming up on the 14th. So the topic that I'm really trying to get to is, how do you survive Valentine's Day? So Valentine's Day, as we know, is the time when men and women or people that are in relationship, whatever it is, the combination, they are going to get together and acknowledge themselves in their relationship and lift it up. So there's a couple different ways you can kind of go about this. If you have a honey boo boo, cool. Okay, so hopefully you guys are doing something to commemorate the day. And I see a lot of couples that are like, you know what, it's commercial, it's the man that's trying to get your money. I get that. That's all cool. But I still think that you should take the time to celebrate Valentine's Day, and so there's 100 different ways that you can do it, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can do something special, and these are kind of things like to remember and always remember, love and those kind of things. And so even with my boo-bae, Marilyn, what we've done before in the past, we didn't. So you can literally go to any type of better restaurant, and they're going to jack the prices up on Valentine's Day. You're going to have to do a reservation. They're going to require you to pay a certain price on a special menu, and it's expensive. Flowers are expensive that day to try to get them delivered and all that. There's 100 different ways that you can work around that. You can always go to Costco and buy flowers. You can go to Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. Their prices tend to be very, very close if that's what your honey boo boo likes. Just buy a bouquet and kind of keep that going. And then if you want to go out and spend a lot of money at a Ruth Chris or one of them kind of places, do it. But you don't have to. And so like one of the things that me and my wife have done when we were courting, If you're trying to find something cool to do where the prices stay the same, go to the movies. And I'll tell you, in the past 3 years or so, on Valentine's Day every year, there's always a major blockbuster that gets released. And I don't know if it was last year or the year before, we've gone to the movies every year. Maybe it's 2 years ago, but they had the Bob Marley movie that came out. I forget what we watched last year. But we always go to the movies out here in Richmond. The price of the movie is about $8 in the evening. It's very affordable out here. And then they have a dine-in theater where you can order a burger and fries and a drink. You can have that for like $20. So you figure if you end up taking your honey boo boo to the movies, you guys can leave the house and go a little bit hungry and arrive at the movie theater. You're going to pay about $20 for the tickets out here. You're probably going to spend about $40 for the food for both of you guys. So in the end, what's that like? What, $60? $65, and you got to leave a little bit of a tip because they bring the food to your seat. You get to watch a movie, you got something to talk about, then you guys can kind of go home and do a quick little champagne toast, and then you guys can jump in the, you guys can partake in some adult activity. All good. You guys can definitely celebrate Valentine's Day by going to do something very, very similar, and then just make it a tradition. Every year we go do something like that. So there's a ton of things you guys can do out there and have a great Valentine's Day. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to get caught up in the commercial side of it. And when we went to the movies on Valentine's Day, the theater was always packed. There was always a lot of people there. And so they're all doing the same type of thing. So if you have a honey boo boo, you want to celebrate them, at a minimum, you don't have to buy something kind of crazy at all. The most important thing is to remember them, do something special. And then even if you stay home that night, you make dinner for them, And I think really when it comes down to it, the guy is the one that kind of controls Valentine's Day. And so if you don't really cook a lot, your honey boo boo makes food all the time, that's the night you want to take her out or take her to the movies. You want to take some time and make a nice meal at home. You guys can watch something on Netflix. The most important thing here to remember is you don't have to spend a lot of money to have a great time with your boo. And, if you guys are both on the same page, you're trying to save money or whatever it might be, there's 100 things you can do. And it's always better to celebrate those things now than to have regrets later on in the future when you can no longer do that type of stuff anymore. And I'll tell you, and there's a number of people out there that I know that I've experienced in my life that a lot of times the lady just desires to at least be recognized on Valentine's Day, and then the fella is like, whatever, I'm not going to spend the money. And this is kind of the way I see it. If you've taken the time to end up in a relationship, and it's give and take, you have to each give 100%, not 100% all the time, but 100%. And if you guys aren't necessarily doing that, in the end, things are going to be a little doomed, And if you look at it this way, if you end up working for a company, let's use this as an example. You work for a company and the company is like, hey, first day of work, all you got to do is come in on time. You got to punch in, punch out, take your breaks. You got to do the best. You got to try to smile and, give great customer service. And if you can do that, you've got a long tenure of employment that you have here. So let's say, for example, you start being like, you know what, I'm gonna start being late. And so you start coming in late, 15, 20 minutes late here and there. Then they notice, but they don't say anything. Eventually they have a conversation with you. You start not doing other things you're not supposed to do. Okay, cool. Then they notice, but then they start having a conversation with you. There's going to get to a point where they're going to push you up against the wall and say, hey, look, you are not meeting expectations. And if you do anything else, your position will be terminated. And we don't care what the reason or the excuse is coming up. And so the next day, for whatever reason, there's some situation that happens that's truly out of your control. You end up getting to work like 5 minutes late and you're like, hey, this incredible thing happened. They're like, okay, cool, wonderful. But, our word is our bond. You're out of here. And so they end up firing you. You go home, you take the long drive to get home. You're sitting there on your couch and you realize, you know what? if you are smart, you will take accountability for screwing up. And then you'll realize that you screwed up. And the point I'm trying to make here is that the next employer that you go to, you're going to have to do what you're supposed to do anyway. You're going to have to go to work on time. You're going to have to do your job. You're going to have to participate. You're going to have to also go above and beyond, have a smile, all that type of stuff. So if you don't do that stuff at your current job, you're going to have to do it at your next job. And if you don't do it at the next job, you will get fired. And when you go to the next job, you're going to have to do it. And so it's better to go ahead and do those things now than it is to get fired from your job. And so if your honey boo boo likes these things and you don't like them, this is the time that you should at least try to give them what they want. Because in the end, if she ends up kicking you to the curb or something happens, when you get in the next relationship, you're going to have to do these things anyway. Because if you don't, you're going to get marked. You're going to get terminated from that job also as well. So like I said, with Valentine's Day here, you know, it's essential to be able to at least do what your partner or honey boo boo expects out of you. And then just keep things reasonable, keep things simple. Now for folks that, and I'll tell you, if you are in a relationship and the relationship ended, I saw somebody the other day, they posted, they've had like a fairly public breakup online. You know, there's always the things that happen when you see this stuff happen. And they made a post saying that, hey, I'm going to be spending Valentine's Day by myself. Okay, cool. No problem at all. I've spent a mini Valentine's Day by myself. And so what you have to do is, so how do you deal with it? They got Galentine's Day, they got National Side Piece Day the day after, you know, but I'll tell you, Valentine's Day, if you're not with somebody at all, don't let it be the end of the world. And just because you're not with somebody this year doesn't mean you're not going to be with somebody next year. And so if you're in a situation where you want to be you want to celebrate Valentine's Day with somebody you don't stay home. And so I'll tell you what, there's a number of years that I didn't have anybody at all. And on Valentine's Day, I went out by myself. So I think the last time I did this was maybe 3 years ago. And in the Bay Area, they had Yoshi's. And so Yoshi's is the nightclub, and they always have, you know, a number of different artists that were there. And I think that night they might have had John B. that was performing, maybe, or somebody along those lines. It's kind of like the more lover type of personality when it comes to music. I don't remember who it was. And so what I ended up doing, I went online, I bought a ticket, and I showed up, I stood in line. And I'll tell you, there were a ton of couples that were at Yoshi's all hugged up and ordering food and drinks. And there were a lot of single people that were there also too. There were a lot of women that were single. They were sitting at tables, and I would walk by to go to the bathroom, and I'd say, hi ladies, how y'all doing? And they'd be like, oh, hey, you know, so there's a lot of them. But I ended up going there and I enjoyed the show by myself. You know, and I ended up sitting at a table with a number of people that I didn't know, and I ended up talking to people that were there, you know. So, hey, and when it was all said and done, I got in the car and drove my black-owned business home and went to bed. And so did I feel bad about not having a honey boo-boo that year? No, not at all. And so my suggestion is, if you don't have somebody this year for Valentine's Day and you want to survive, cool. This doesn't mean that this is your disposition, and it doesn't mean that you should settle either to try to fix the problem next year. On Valentine's Day, go out and do something cool. Go out and be amongst the people. You know, if there's a movie you want to go see, go watch the movie. Treat yourself to some dinner at the movie theater, whatever it might be. If there's a local club that's playing some music, they got a band in town, go see it. Go watch the band, enjoy it, have a good time. If there's something else that's happening locally, get out and celebrate and make it happen and be what it be. And the one thing that I wanted to do that I never got to do was, one year when I was single, I was going to actually go to Costco and buy a bunch of flowers, and because they were really cheap, like a big 24 dozen. I was going to go to Yoshi's. And when I came there, I was going to bring the flowers in with me. And then when I saw the ladies at the table sitting by themselves, I'd be like, hey, ladies, you guys want a rose? And I was going to hand out the 24 roses to the ladies because it would allow me to do something nice for somebody else, and at the same time it would allow the ladies to also be recognized as well on a day. So because Valentine's coming and you don't necessarily have somebody to hang out with, doesn't make a difference at all. Find something else to do, and do something to acknowledge the day. That way, when the day does come and you have somebody there with you, the day is going to be considered to be an important one. And if you have a honey boo boo, make sure you try to do something special for them. Ladies, do something special for your men. Men, do something special for your ladies. And you don't have to go out of your way and buy 100 roses, long stem, and have them delivered. You can keep it simple, and if you have a person that wants you to break the bank on those type of things and they don't appreciate it, what you do, what little you do, you're probably with the wrong person in the first place. And that's something you're going to have to figure out and reconcile there on your own. So like I said, just because Valentine's Day is coming doesn't mean that you should feel bad about yourself, feel bad about the situation that you're in. Hey, it is what it is. And truly, it is another day. It's a day of love. And then don't let your desire to be in a relationship force you into situations that can affect you to being in a relationship. And I'll say this. I tell people all the time, when it comes to being in a relationship, if that's what you desire, and I'll tell you, I've seen this a lot, and I know a lot of people know this as well. A lot of times when you run into folks that have been long-term single for a long time, they might be involved in stuff that's taking place under the surface. And so I understand everybody has their issues and needs and their wants and all that. But you have to be very careful about being involved in those situations. And really, truly, if you meet somebody and they don't want to, and I understand when you first meet somebody, you kind of, to yourselves, you kind of hang out a little bit and try to figure things out. This is what you want is to be in a relationship eventually. You have to realize that there's stages. And so if the person you meet does not want to have you be a public representative of who they are, you got to really take that into consideration and realize what's really being trying to say. No matter what the excuse is. Oh, I'm not a PDA person, or I'm not super affectionate, or I just like to keep my business private. You already know the reason why these things are happening. So if you're involved in that situation, you think you can change them, him or her, you can flip it around and one day eventually go into a public relationship with them. Good luck. It oftentimes does not happen at all, and it is what it is. And so when it comes to relationship, like I said, when you first start dating, keep things on the under, you're kind of quiet, but eventually there's only a few options. There's boyfriend and girlfriend, and if you guys, so really it's dating, boyfriend and girlfriend, and then your fiance, engaged, and then your spouses, wife and a husband. That's it. And any other variation of that stuff doesn't lead to the end point of one day being able to have, a public Valentine's Day relationship. And I'll tell you, when I was out there in these streets and I was single, I always had an idea that I would end up in a relationship, but I'll tell you, a lot of folks ask me all the time, they're like, Dre, do you know anybody, clients, friends, cousins, uncles, brothers that you can refer my way? And oftentimes I don't have an answer, and I feel kind of wish like I did, but I'll tell you, in my life, when I would travel the earth, I always in the back of my mind wanted to be in a relationship long term. That's always been who I am. My brother was the same way also as well. And so when I would meet people, I'd be able to make a quick evaluation within about 45 seconds or a minute to try to determine if I can have a long-term relationship with this person. And if the answers were no, many times I would just keep on going. And so there's a number of things and a lot of it is what I sense and the way they talk and the way they come across and all that. And so I'll tell you, if you are involved in a shadow situation, there's a good chance that shadow situation can keep you from locking down a long-term quality man, because we sense those things and we can keep on going. And a lot of times you'll never know that you were being evaluated. And so we might run into you real quick. We might have a little bit of interest, might do a little bit of research real fast. and then at that point we'll make a decision like, nope, she's not the one, and we keep on going. She may be able to hang around and, you know, be a friend or whatever, but in the end, you know, because of the things that you do, you know, that can keep you from landing the type of guy that you want. So my only advice is, if you truly want to be in a long-term relationship, you have to be ready. And anything that you have tying you down, holding you down, you know, that's keeping your full focus off of landing somebody of quality in the future, you have to cut all that stuff loose, because when a person comes around that's of quality and they make the evaluation and they sense that you are available and you are truly ready, then you can move forward with them. And those other things that you might have that you've been hanging on to, that have been pulling you down, that have been pulling you back, that can keep you from receiving your blessing. So that's one of the things that you want to definitely use in 2026, is that if you have these things that are holding you down, like I said, everybody has got to decide what they want in this life. And if that's what you want, that's where you want to be. Continue to do what you're going to do. But if what you've been doing is not working for you, you're going to have to do something radically different. So I'm just giving you guys a little bit of a clue. If a quality guy decides to come along, we will make an evaluation and we can determine within a minute if you are ready. And if you're not, you're going to get passed over, and you will never know that this actually happened. And it's funny, I've told my wife the stories about her, and I've said them publicly before about what I've done to vet her real quick and all that as well. And it's people are surprised and they are amazed at what a quality fella will do. So like I said, you know, Valentine's Day is coming. This is not the end of life. You know, get out there in these streets and make it happen. And if you find something to do, even if you're single on Valentine's Day, be out and be in public. Get yourself used to, you know, being around yourself. And if you can be around yourself and you can be happy and not have any expectations, you'll be surprised what will come your way in the long run. So that's it, guys. I don't have any more time here. I want to go ahead and wrap everything up. I want to thank you guys for watching this video here, and coming up on the 1 hour mark. But take care and be safe out here. And I'm looking forward to seeing the monks in the walk for peace today. I'll check back with you guys soon. And like I said, Valentine's Day will be here soon. Don't fret. You can make this happen, and you can change your trajectory in 1 year. And so it's all up to you to be able to make it happen. So take care, guys. Peace. And I will be back with you guys another day at another time. Peace. In my life. Oh, shit. Okay. My brother fell. This is black ice. Okay. All right, I'm okay. All systems check. All right, I'm good. So let me just penguin it.